Today on Locked On Rockies. Well, in case you didn't hear, the Rockies are still off to the worst start in modern Major League Baseball history.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 23rd day of May in the year 2025. I am your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies, just like so many of you have. Today, we'll, of course, talk about the Rockies being swept by the Phillies. Bill Schmidt speaks out about the season. And, of course, let's just read from Patrick Lyons here. Rockies fall to 8-42. That's a 160 winning percentage for the worst 50-game start in the modern era since 1901. Previous record was 10-40 by the 2023 Athletics. Previous worst start for Colorado was 14-36 by the 1993 Expansion Club. Let's see. Rockies shut out 2-0 by Phillies. This is all from Patrick Lyons. It's another 5-game losing streak. Philadelphia completes a 4-game sweep against Colorado for the first time at Coors Field. And let's see here. All right. We'll save that for the positive. So again, I mean, that's just a pill to swallow. Again, it's there. What to dive into for the game? It's incredibly disappointing to out-hit the Phillies and then lose, but 2 errors on the board. Again, when you don't play the full 9 innings, complete ball games, when you don't back up your pitching staff when they give you this stuff, when one element of the team shows up to play that day and the other elements fall apart. This is what it's going to continue to be like this. Good teams will not allow you to just get lucky and beat them. Now, there is a comment about some of the umpiring and the officiating over this week and in yesterday's game specifically, which I do agree with. But we're not in a position as Rockies fans to sit here and just lean on the umpire, even though yesterday's game does really solidify that I am very much pro challenge system for balls and strikes, because there was some egregious, and the Phillies were not immune for this either. This was officiating for both offenses here that was suspect at best. Obviously, the Rockies will take any help that they can get, but again, when the umpires also miss some calls, those frustrations kind of compound on top of the other frustrations from the game. But yeah, the finale there, the Rockies had 7 hits. The Phillies only had 4. It was just a couple of one-run little dings there in the 4th and the 7th that were the damage dealers there for Philly. Especially when you're looking at the fact that they were getting the best German Marquez stop in a long time, had some flashy defense from Brenton Doyle and Ryan McMahon. But Bryce Harper is really, really good at ball and and it was, at least it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't big long balls. It wasn't a bunch of stuff, and 2 RBI doubles is pretty tough to be critical of, when that was really all that happened there. As according to this, German Marquez is the Rockies' first starting pitcher to go 7 innings pitched with 1 earned run or fewer in 2 straight home starts since he did it in 2021. Interesting that the runs were allowed, but the errors, because not both of those runs were not earned for German Marquez. Only one of them was earned. So again, errors costing the Rockies yet again, as we just talked about it. But really the main takeaway, the main storyline is the worst start to a season continues. I mean, kind of surprising to hear, I guess, that there were only 2 wins behind the Athletics at this point in after the 50 games here. But to play 50 baseball games and to not have double-digit wins is insane. And yes, the strength of schedule, certainly, but it's still just, in the world of baseball, you should be able to steal a couple more of these. But it's just broken. And I mean, there's plenty of analysis, that we've already talked about, but at this stage, it's just about putting together a complete 9 innings of baseball and being competitive. The Rockies have not been competitive all week, really. I mean, yes, it was close in certain instances. They put some runs on the board, but Philly basically maintained a lead and maintained a sizable lead for a long time as the Rockies' run differential continues to plummet into the 150s or whatever. Shutout at home. And again, these are good teams. I understand that. But it's again, it just plain and simple is just it's just unacceptable. I mean, to just be so outmatched, so out talented, so out prepped. I mean, everything across the board, and I do like actually, that Warren Schaefer is kind of. I actually do like the energy that he's been bringing in sense of like, hey, this is opportunity. We have to look at this as opportunities, and we have to take advantage of those opportunities. We have to go after those opportunities. We have to get it. And I think that is the right mentality to have as you go through this, because again, it's not going to do you any good to just sit there and dwell on the fact that it's gone historically bad for the Rockies as a player. For us on the outside, for the talking heads about the Rockies, that's a totally different story. But I'm talking about for the players and in there, it doesn't do you any good to just sit there and yell at yourself and beat yourself up and and focus on how horrendous everything has gone because of that mental side of ball. So when Schaefer comes in and he's talking about opportunity, and when you're looking again, this is a young Rockies team. There's a lot of guys that are still trying to make their way and establish themselves as big leaguers. That's important context. But it still means like, hey, these are your opportunities to shine. These are your opportunities to start showing us something great, something exciting, something that will give the hope for going forward. And this is your opportunity to get your reps too, right? Look at what happened now as we've seen with Michael Toglia missing out on, I believe, 2 straight days now with being benched for Farmer. This is your chance. As a young player, this is your opportunity to just show yourself and establish yourself onto the team, establish yourself and launch yourself as a big leaguer, and not someone that's going to be on the teetering of should I go down, should I go up, what's going to happen with me, what's going to do that. The young guys and the young Rockies need to be buying into that opportunity talk from Schaefer, because they need to be able to start rising to the occasion, and that means adjusting. That means adjusting to being a big leaguer. That means making sure that they are taking away those hard lessons. We've heard it on the broadcast a lot. Hard lessons learned. Rockies learning a lot of lessons. They're young. They're doing this. So when, I don't know when, it's hard to quantify, but hopefully as the season goes on and as this horrendous stretch continues, we do see progress from young Rockies. Jordan Beck, Hunter Goodman, guys that are having seasons that are showing that, hey, they amidst everything, they aren't losing out on their opportunity. They're taking advantage of it. And we'll see if other guys can start following suit, because there can be some guys that can start putting some pressure on some vets for the Rockies if they start producing. But it's going to take some work, because this is a team that continues to be unable to score. A team that cannot protect Coors Field, does not make Coors Field an uncomfortable place to play. And they're going up against another insanely good offense, starting here with the Yankees throughout the weekend. Schedule ain't going to get any easier. The road isn't going to get any easier. Nothing about the season is going to get easier for the Colorado Rockies. How will they handle and how will they step up to their opportunities? We'll see. We'll see how it goes. All right. So the Rockies got swept by the Phillies. I don't think anyone's all that surprised. It was a bummer. It stunk, and the Phillies are a good baseball team. So, of course, that means the Rockies are being reflective, and they think that, and are painting a picture where they understand how everything's going through, right? Well, we'll see what Bill Schmidt has to say. We'll talk about that coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props and performance trends and same-game parlays, fans have way more ways to play smart and win big. Maybe you want to dive in there, of course, because it's going to be, we got Pacers and we got Knicks tonight. Are you going Halliburton on threes? Maybe you're going to go with Brunson. Maybe what? Do you think he's going to hit another big night on points? Do you think he's going to go, up into the 20s to 30s? You can see it all for yourself there. And you can turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Because if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Yes, that's $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel.com. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. Thank you again for making us your first listen. All right. So if you haven't seen yet, on 9news.com, where you can also find Locked On Rockies, by the way, Bill Schmidt speaking with the Colorado Rockies, speaking with about the Colorado Rockies here. And let's just go through some of his quotes here. And we are again, of course, reading from Mike Kliss's piece on 9 News. Frustrating and embarrassing, Rockies GM addresses team's slow start. Let's see. The humiliating loss to the San Diego Padres epitomized two truths. One, for more than 38,000 fans to show up. Fenway couldn't get 38,000 to show, even if every chair was occupied, to watch a team that consistently proves it's not ready for the show, proves Denver is the best sports market in America, and it's not even close. And two, these fans deserve so much better. I don't disagree, Rockies general manager Bill Schmidt said in a sit-down interview Wednesday with 9 News. They're good people. They're very loyal. How we're playing right now is not acceptable, but I do think there's a good future going with some of our young players. There it is. There's his favorite line, baby. Boom. Hey, keep holding on. Keep hanging on to the future, because it's all we got. The young guys. The young guys are coming. They are rolling. It's just keep holding on hope, because that's what Bill Schmidt's been telling us since he's taken up. We got the young guys. Hang on, hang on. Remember who's been the GM throughout this whole stretch. Remember who has been building the team throughout the worst stretch in Rockies history. And Bill Schmidt, no matter what, no matter how much hopium about the future you want to bring to the Rockies fans, that is on your resume. No matter what, your resume, your tenure as the general manager of the Colorado Rockies will be associated with the worst stretch of Rockies baseball in team and Major League Baseball history. And we're going to get to some more things, there's some context there, but I just want to, again, as we keep hoping for the future, we're now going to be in the third straight season under Bill Schmidt's tenure where the Rockies will finish with 100 losses and be not just the worst team in baseball, but one of the worst teams in Major League Baseball history. So no, an answer of just hang on for the young guys for the future is no longer enough for the answers from the front office and the organization. I do not want to keep hearing and holding on hope for the future when I'm watching prospects not develop, and I'm watching players that you drafted, that you put into this system that have not been in a position to succeed. Bill Schmidt deserves maybe more time, but that is wearing thin, because I can't keep hearing from the people, hey, just hold on. Young guys are coming. Well, we're watching a lot of young guys now. We're going to get a pretty good idea about a good crop of these prospects by the end of the season, and I'm not sure it's going to be enough to keep the Rockies afloat. Let's keep going here. But these three, let's see. Schmidt has devoted his entire life to baseball, first as a coach and scout, and then more specifically as the Rockies' top scouting executive since 1999 and the team's general manager since 2021. He delivered the likes of Garrett Atkins, Brad Hopp, Jeff Francis, Ryan Spilborghs, Corey Sullivan, Chris Iannetta, Dexter Fowler, and Troy Tulowitzki to their miraculous 2007 Rocktober team. But these last 3 seasons have been a nightmare. There were the Rockies' first 100-loss season, and they came in back-to-back in 2023 and 2024, and yet somehow it got worse in 2025. Historically so. No team since Major League Baseball was formed in 1901 has been worse than the 1962 expansion Mets, who finished 40-20, or the 2024 White Sox, who won 5 of their last 6 games to finish 41-121. Yet the Rockies, this is a little bit. We'll keep going down here, but that's just some more emphasis here. Each loss brings about a new awful pace, a comparison to the worst starts in history after 35 games, after 40 games, for going on 50 games. These Rockies are in the record books for the worst now 50-game start, but this was written for 48 in Major League history. Schmidt can't escape seeing or hearing the obsession with those frickin' paces. Oh, it's frustrating. It's embarrassing. I feel bad for fans. I feel bad for, you talk about our ownership group. I feel bad for them. There are people who work in the ballpark I feel bad for. I feel responsible. I do think we're going to get better as it goes. I mean, we're in a gauntlet with games with who we play this month. There it is. Boom. Schedule excuse. Hey-o. It's going to get better, guys. It's just going to get better. That's his answer. The only answer Bill Schmidt has to everything is, yeah, it stinks. It's frustrating. I feel bad for you fans, but it's going to get better. It's going to get better. It's going to get better. You're on year 4, buddy, and 3 out of 4, you have had historically bad seasons with the teams that you've put together. Mind you, again, with this context and with the frustration for people that are like, hey, are you being fair? We will get to some important context as this piece goes on. But again, a second answer in this interview where he tells you to be patient. He tells you that it's going to get better. Hang on, hope, do this. Well, I think a lot of Rockies fans are pretty much out of patience at this point. And you need to prove and demonstrate why Rockies fans should still be patient, why Rockies fans should care, why Rockies fans should spend money on your organization, why Rockies fans should buy into what you're doing. Because what you have done for now 4 years is not build a successful baseball team. You have not built a dominant farm system. You have built a top 10, maybe, farm system. You've built a major league ball club that can't win more than 60 games. Bill Schmidt has not been the GM of the Colorado Rockies for a season where they lose less than 100 games all but once. One season. And he's going to keep sitting here and saying, it's the future is coming. We're don't worry, hang on there. Unacceptable. Of course you feel responsible. You are responsible. You and Dick Mumford are very much responsible for this. Same with everyone else in the organization that gets continued to be enabled by Dick Mumford. Of course you're feeling frustrated. All of us are. But for you to follow up your second quote in this interview to have, hang on, how many more 100-loss seasons do Rockies fans need to sit through? How many more laughing stock series? How many more times where the Rockies need to be clearly outmatched from the top down, not just on the field, in the GM office, in the ownership position, in the front office, outmatched at every single level. But just hold on, folks. Because we as Rockies fans just need to keep holding on, because one day 2007 is going to magically reappear and Rocktober will be back. And then we get to say Rocktober. We get to say, whoa, here we go, Rocktober, yeah. Remember 2007? That was cool. 2007 was almost 20 years ago. What have the Rockies done in 20 years outside of the 2 back-to-back playoff years? Because the 2 back-to-back playoff seasons are now washed completely away in the wake of the Nolan Arenado trade, the signing of Chris Bryant, and now 3 straight losing 100-loss seasons with one of the worst starts. The worst start in Major League Baseball history, going forward to be one of the worst seasons in Major League Baseball history. But, okay. I guess I need to keep being patient for that, because certainly the people in charge, certainly the people making the calls, they know how to get this organized and get this right. There certainly isn't a long history of falling flat and being unable to get the job done in the organization, right? Well, wait a minute. There's a lot of that. Keep reading here. Top Tough homestand. It's been a tough month, Schmidt said. Outside of Texas, think they were right at 500. Everyone else was a playoff caliber team. But I think going forward as the summer goes along and our younger guys settle in a bit, I think we're going to see some positives of the growth. Third quote in a row about just hang in there, wait and see. For this interview, Schmidt knew there weren't going to be a bunch of questions about the promise of his farm system. This team is in dire straits, and the fan base wants to know who's at fault. And with the team firing Black and going 1-7 in the first 8 games under interim manager Warren Schaefer, early evidence suggests it wasn't Bud's fault. It wasn't. You just shouldn't have brought him back to start the season anyway. You should have started going in a different direction. But of course, it's the Rockies. It's their guy. We gotta bring Buddy back. We gotta have Dick and Bill and Buddy. That's the gang. Gotta have the whole gang. The target of discontent has shifted to the man in charge of putting the team together, Bill Schmidt. I realize, Schmidt said, ultimately, I am responsible for the players we put on the field. You know, I have a lot of respect for Buddy. Buddy's a good baseball man. I just think we got to the point where you needed to change the voice a little bit in the clubhouse. Oh, I wonder when that kind of was a factor. Maybe after back-to-back 100-loss seasons? I don't know. I do think good things are going to happen. Boom! He's 4 for 4. He's got it again. He can't answer a question without reminding you that's going to get better. You got to hold on for the hope. Remember, it's going to get better. It's going to be fine. Yeah, we've lost some tough games. The recent road trip could have easily been 3-3, right? Well, it wasn't. It wasn't, Bill. And that's your team that you've put together. Your team of people that we have to keep sitting here and saying, okay, we got the young guys. They're going to do it. They're going to do the job. Okay. I think we're playing with a lot more energy, Schmidt said. I'll go back to Warren Schaefer and the coaching staff and the changes we made. I think the energy, the work ethic that's going on, the early work prior to that night's game, those are all positives. They're going to help us going forward. And we're playing with some young guys. My whole objective this year was to really grow and get better, and that's where that hasn't changed. Well, you can say that for the example of 2 guys, but what about the other ones? And what about all the playing time that Farmer and Martini are going to get over the other guys? How much time is Estrada going to get over Amador? Is Estrada really even worth it at this point if you really are focused on having your young guys get better? And how are the Rockies themselves going to make sure that these guys are developing into quality ball players? We'll have to see there. All right, we got more from this piece and to go. And there's, again, and what's important here for segment 3, if you've gotten through the theatrics of me being fired up this morning, there is context that should be applied when criticizing and when looking at the situation of the Rockies and Bill Schmidt. And let's dive into that as this piece continues and we get some more quotes from the Rockies general manager, Bill Schmidt, speaking on the season. We'll do that in segment number 3. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. You can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot. So that's what we're doing around here, is talking rocks, diving through the 9 News piece, the 9 News interview with Bill Schmidt here. Frustrating and embarrassing. Rockies GM addresses slow start by Mike Kliss here over on 9news.com. Basically, so we continue, and I was being critical. I got fired up. I was doing my yelling and ranting and raving. But there is some important context that needs to be made here for how this season has gone and for the state of the Colorado Rockies, which Schmidt gives us some good insight here in these next quotes. To Schmidt's credit, he was never defensive about any of the questions, never got angry. He took accountability while also explaining how the team has fallen into such a dreadful state. Probably a perfect storm, Schmidt said. I'm talking about this year. Some guys we were counting on for some injuries. We lost Tovar for a good month. Estrada, who we had planned for being our second baseman, he's hopefully going to be out on a rehab this week from a fractured wrist suffered in spring training. So we're probably 10 days away from him joining us. And then we've had some guys not perform. McMahon had probably the worst April you could have. He's played better in May. So a combination of things. Then again, all teams deal with injuries. All teams go through bouts of one thing after another. But 8-40, now 8-42. Sure, the heat has been turned on high on Schmidt, but the biggest bullseye has long been set on team owner Dick Momfort. The media and frustrated fans on social media have repeatedly offered the same solution. Momfort needs to sell the team. I think Dick's one of the better owners in the game, Schmidt said. I have a lot of respect for Dick. Well, color me surprised. Your boss, the guy that you've been incredibly loyal to for your entire career, the guy that has helped you build your entire career? No wonder. Shocker. And I would say, though, to you, Mr. Schmidt, what is the Colorado Rockies' reputation across baseball, especially the front office and the organization? Is it a positive one or is it a negative one? You can sit there and say that Dick Monfort is a good owner when it comes to getting attendance, having a nice ballpark, and that side of things. But you cannot sit there and say he is one of the best owners when it comes to running a successful on-the-field product. Dick Monfort is a good businessman and is good at making the money in the other ways. But Dick Monfort, in the response to losing a huge source of revenue, has enabled people to produce a product that people don't want to watch. So now the Rockies are banking off other teams' attendances, other teams coming into town, and those people filling the seats. Because if it was just Rockies fans, if it was just people that was just if it was just Rockies fans, though the attendance numbers would plummet. But to sit there and have the gall of just that, and here's what he expands with. There's loyalty there. There's backing. He cares a lot. Yeah, we get stuff every year. We're adding, we're getting better, we're farther along. I think he's a good owner and he deserves better. And we've talked about it internally, trying to really win for him. There's so much hesitation in that. There's so much stopping. There's so much pausing. There's so much there where Schmidt has to cover his butt because you cannot speak ill of Dick Monfort. You can't. If you are in the organization and you want to stay there, you cannot criticize. Oh, heaven forbid that he criticizes or has any sort of negative thing to say about the guy that has enabled him and put him in the position. Of course, Bill Schmidt's going to think that Dick Monfort's one of the best. Duh. Bill Schmidt's been with the Rockies since the 90s. What did they say? Was it with the 90s? Am I pulling that out of my butt here? Let me just double check on this piece here. Really great piece, by the way. Let's see. I want to find out where he is. Come on, I gotta find the how long he's been with the club. There's too much in here. There's too much in this great piece here. Anyway. But of course, that's basically the cherry on top. Also in this piece here, he highlights how they do go on the outside and we bring people outside. And he's like, so their question was, should they go outside and outside the organization, bring in some new things? And here was Schmidt's answer. We have and we do, Schmidt said. Now, do we talk about them or vocalize who they are? But we've added people from the outside. Even somebody would say, hey, Clint Hurdle, the Rockies hitting coach and former manager. But Clint was gone for 12 years before he came back, and he had been with 2 other organizations. He'd been with Texas when they went to the World Series. He'd been with the Pirates. So he brought in a different perspective, knowing what we've done. We don't talk about it, but we do bring in other people. It might be a scout here or a player development guy. There's a lot of things that go on that we don't talk about. Bull crap. Such a weak answer there. You brought Clint Hurdle back. Oh, but he was gone. It's Clint Hurdle. You brought Clint Hurdle back because he is chums with the owner. Duh. Clint Hurdle didn't do anything magical. Clint Hurdle didn't have anything crazy to bring back to this team. You brought back Rocktober. That's what you wanted to do there. Get out of here. You bring in people from the outside. No, your owner is specifically on record saying that we have it figured out. We have the decisions. We know what we're doing. He said that. And again, you're going to promote from within. You can't sit there and say, Bill Schmidt's going to say, oh, we bring people from the inside. You got hired from within. Every single one of your promotions has been within the organization. You were given the GM job. They didn't look outside the organization at all to fill the GM thing. They had you in mind. They had their guy. And here he is trotting him out. Dick Monfort. He's a good owner. He's doing his job. We bring in other people. Oh, there's criticism. When you bring people in, they leave under a year because you won't buy into what they want to do. We didn't forget those high-end analytics people that didn't last a year within the organization because being stonewalled by the organization. Get out of here with that. Such a cover your butt answer. And they also talk about altitude and the humidor and all these things. But there's plenty more here. for this, but I just I did want to think, because as we're out of time, I wanted to bring up an important part of Schmidt's role, and I think this is actually a huge part of what Schmidt has had to deal with, and this is what we've brought up before. It's titled under the collapse of regional sports network on this here, where it's talking about how hard the Rockies have been hit by losing out on that TV deal, and we've talked about this before, but this is something that I think this is worthwhile insight, and this is something that I think for sure has a big, when we're talking about, they don't talk about bringing in, outside names. This is something I'm sure they haven't talked a ton about, because money is always a tricky situation when you're talking about. Here's what he has to say here about that. Schmidt's lane is building a roster, not business, marketing, or economics, but he does understand how payroll and quality players are naturally linked. So he's aware that losing the regional sports network has indirectly impacted his team. Well, it factors in, Schmidt said. There's no doubt losing the revenue and with the regional sports, but we're no different from other organizations, and we've had to balance. And you made some decisions on getting contracts on some guys, but there are a lot of things that are outside of my control. As much as it's outside of his control, I really do think when we're talking about the roster being constructed the way it is this year, with the contracts, with cutting the payroll, with everything that with the decisions and the moves that the Rockies made, I think it's abundantly clear that the Rockies losing that was a huge chunk of, in the past, the TV money clearly impacted who and where and how many and the type of contracts they were able to do and put out there each season. And so maybe that's not necessarily Schmidt's area of expertise, but that is something that Schmidt will have to deal with that payroll and that issue. Again, like I said, not the issues in terms of how do we make it work without that, but hey, we don't have this money. You don't have the money to put we don't have this money anymore. That impacts your ability to sign players. So you need to be creative. And I think that's why it's the Martinis, it's the Farmers, it's the Estradas that you're getting, and the non-tendering of Brendan Rodgers, for example, as well, in that situation. So I think that's some important context to make there to add, because that is a real big deal. I think that's been a huge impact on the Colorado Rockies this season. And here's what the final thing here is, where we're going long today, is I just want to his Schmidt's final words to Rockies fans. I feel their pain, Schmidt said about the team's fan. Trust me, I'm embarrassed how we've played and what's transpired, but I do think some good things are going to go on here. I think we do have some good young players that are fun to watch, and there will be more that will join, and that's how it goes. Same old answer there. So what do you guys think? What's your reaction to Bill Schmidt's interview there? What were your thoughts on Bill Schmidt's comments? What were your thoughts on the Phillies series? And what are your thoughts on the Rockies? Let me know in the Locked On Rockies YouTube comment section, because that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services. And for your second listen, go check out Locked On MLB Game Night and Locked On MLB, of course. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs, right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from Locked On Rockies podcast.